Yud Daled Amud Beis, and I didn't notice until after I did the first daf. Everything in life is Siyata D'Shmaya, we know, but it's fascinating that certain times the daf corresponds exactly to the days of the year. And it happens to be that we're going to quote the pasuk on the top of this daf that we just read in the laning. We'll see in a second. We said that when you want to expand Yerushalayim and you want to expand the Azara, so you got to go through this whole process where you have the consent of the Kohen, the Melech, the Navi. You got to bring the two Todas in front of the Jewish people. Minani mili amar afsimi barchia damar kra kechol asher ani mareh otcha eitavni ta mishkan ve'etavni kol kelav v'chein ta'asu. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu was telling Moshe Rabbeinu to build the Mishkan, he was saying everything that I tell you now, that's how you should do it, lidoros. So the Gemara learns it should be lidoros, and just like in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, as the Gemara says, there was a Navi and there was a Melech, and Moshe was the Melech and Moshe was the Navi, and his brother Aaron was a Kohen Gadol, and there were V'tumin, there was Shivim Zekanim, which is like the Sanhedrin. So just like at that time you had all of those things, so too, if you want to ever expand the boundaries of the Azara or of the Yerushalayim city, then you have to have the Melech, the Navi, the V'tumin, the Sanhedrin, Shal Me'echad, the Shtei Todos, and the Shir. Says the Gemara, Masiv Rava. The only problem is if you tell me you need to be exactly like it was done at the time of the Mishkan, we know that there are other things. Yes, maybe the expansion needs to be done like the Mishkan was done, but there are other things that were done at the time of the Mishkan which we're saying do not necessarily apply Lidoros for all generations. Masiv Rava asks a question. Kol HaKelim Sha'asa Moshe Mishichasan Mikadishasan Mikan Ve'elach Avodasan Mechanechasan. That means all of the kelim that Moshe Rabbeinu used in the Mishkan, the way that he anointed them and made them kelim that could be used in the Beis HaMikdash, or in the Mikdash, we should say, was he did Mashicha with them. He used oil with them. Mikan ve'elach avodasan mechanechaschan. From that time on, so you didn't actually, like in the Beis HaMikdash, etc., they didn't actually go ahead and pick the kelim by anointing them with oil. What did they do? By using them, now they would be able to be used in the Beis HaMikdash. So you just said that v'chein ta'asu, whatever they did at the time of the Mishkan, they did in the Beis HaMikdash, but you clearly see it's not true. At the time of the Mishkan, they would anoint the utensils, and at the time of the Beis HaMikdash, they would go ahead and the avoda would anoint them without actually using the Shem and HaMishcha. V'amai, v'nema v'chein ta'asu l'doros, shani hasam de'amar kra, v'yim shachem v'yikadesh osam. That was today's laning. V'hi biyom kalos Moshe, L'hakim es hamishkan, v'yimashach oso, v'yikadesh oso, v'eskol kelav, v'esam mizbeach, v'ekol kelav, v'yimshachem, v'yikadesh osam. That's pretty cool. We just quoted a pasuk from today's laning from the beginning of Hanukkah. So what do you see over there? You see that he was yikadesh osam. Osam b'meshicha, v'lo l'doros b'meshicha. It says, v'yimshachem, he poured the oil on them and not l'doros. So in general, we learn whatever he did, we do Lidoros. But by the Meshicha, by anointing the vessels and making them holy with the oil, that was Dafka. The Pasuk tells us, Osam, only those. Ema Osam b'Meshicha Lidoros, O b'Meshicha O b'Avoda. You have two different inferences when you say only those were done with Meshicha. It means one can argue only those were done with Meshicha, but in the future they're only done with Avoda by using them. Or one can say those were done with only Meshicha, but in the future, yes, you can use Avoda, but you can also use Meshicha if you want. You can do either one of the two. And again, Meshicha here is with a ches, not with a chaf. Says the Gemara, it doesn't mean to pull, it means to anoint. Amar Rav Papa, Amar Kra, Asher Yishrasu Bam Bakodesh. It says later that Yishrasu is in the future. Yishrasu Bam Bakodesh, that there'll be a time later in the future where you will go ahead and you will use them Bakodesh, i.e. you'll anoint them by using them. Tlana kasa b'sheris. You clearly see here that it becomes holy once you're asher yishrasu, once you use them. So at the end of the day, the Gemara says, Hasha d'chaz rachman asher yishrasu osam lamli. So what's the Gemara's question? The Gemara's question is basically saying that you have two inferences now, that in the future, they're going to be able to be mekadesh the kelim with the avoda. On one end it says asher yishrasu bahem, that in the future, the way that you make kelim kodesh is by using them, yishrasu bahem. And you also have an inference from the fact that back then it says Osam that only those were with Meshicha and not in the future. So why do you need both? So the Gemara is going to say, what does the Gemara say? Ilo kasarachmana Osam hava mina hanihu de b'Meshicha ledoros b'Meshicha u'v'avoda da kasa v'chein tasu mi'ed rachmana Osam b'Meshicha v'lo ledoros b'Meshicha. Fascinating. So the Gemara says you need both. If you just said Osam, then you would think that at the time of Moshe, you anoint them in order to make them holy, and in the future, you could either anoint them or you could give avoda. Then we said Asher Yishritu Otam. It's clearly not either or, because you see, you clearly have to go ahead and use them in the avoda. Maybe now one would say that in the future, you have to not only use them for the avoda, you have to anoint them both. You have to do both. Says the Gemara, Osam, and not in the future. Therefore, it comes out that in the future, you go ahead and you specifically, it's Asher Yishrasu Bahem. The only way to make Kalim holy in the future is by using them, and the only way to make Kalim holy at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu was by pouring the Shem and Amishcha, the oil on top of them. That's the first klal that we learn for today. Again, always trying to get klalim. Back in the time of Moshe, they anointed the stuff with oil, and in the future, they made it holy not by anointing it with oil, but by using it as part of the avoda. First time you use it, it becomes Asher Yishrasu Bam, and it becomes holy. Uvishtei todos. Now we say that you have to go ahead, and part of the process is to, as the Mishnah said on Yud Aleph Aleph, part of the process is to take 2 todos. Now, what's a toda in general? A korban toda is a korban. When you take a korban toda, what comes along with a korban toda? 40 loaves. What's the breakdown?
As far as what? Oh, yeah.
Matzah versus chametz? Not half. 10
30,
loaves
30,
of matzah,
30,
10 loaves of 10 loaves of chametz, and 30 loaves of matzah. Shebechol halilos anu ochlim. Tonight we eat 10 loaves of challah and 30 loaves of matzah. That's a toda. 10 loaves of challah and 30 loaves of matzah. So we're talking about shtei todos over here. The question is, what are we marching around? Again, what are we doing here? We have the wall of Yerushalayim, for instance, or you could expand the Azar, but let's say the wall of Yerushalayim. What do? You do this whole process where you march around the perimeter, basically as far as you want to extend. So if the wall is here, and you want to extend it here, so you basically march around the perimeter with this whole parade. So part of this parade is 2 todos. So what are we using when we talk about 2 todos? Are we talking about carrying breads? Or are we talking about carrying the meat of the korban that we're bringing? Are we talking about carrying both? We're talking about carrying neither. What are we talking about? So the Gemara says, Shtei todos she'amru, belachman velo bebesaran. It's talking about carrying the lechem of 2 todos. Now again, it's unclear.
2060?
What?
So it would be 2060? Well,
one second. Belachman velo bebesaran. You're going to carry the lechem, so you're going to carry the lechem versus the basar. That's the first thing that we're saying. You're saying the lechem versus the basar. That's the first thing we're saying. Minahani mili. Where do we see this? Amar of Chisda, as Rav Chisda said, the Amar Kra, as the pasuk says, ve'amida shtei todos gedolos v'taluchos liyamin me'alachoma. This was in the times of Nehemiah, when they went ahead and they were being mekadesh the ear. So what did they do? They brought 2 todos gedolos. They took 2 todos gedolos. What's a toda gedola? So the Gemara says it can't be an animal. My gedolos. Eli mami min gadol mamish name aparm. If you're telling me that you take the 2 biggest todos, what's the 2 biggest animals you could bring as a toda? A par. So it should have said you bring 2 paros. Ela gedolos b'minan. Rather, it means no, you bring any animal that you want. Just has to be the biggest of the animal that you choose. You want to bring a sheep, you bring a goat, you want to bring a ram, whatever you want to bring, but it got to be the biggest type, a big one of those. So that's more. That can't be either. Because we know that God doesn't care what size korban you bring. Ve'atanya, it says, Nemar be'olas behema ishe re'ech nichoach l'Hashem, be'olas ha'of ishe re'ech nichoach l'Hashem, be'mincha ishe re'ech nichoach, melame, this is the famous idea, she'echad amarba ve'echad amamen, muvat she'yichavin eslibo laviv shabbat shamayim. In general, in life, yes, you have to do the mitzvos, but don't think that if you give more tzedakah and it's not l'shem shamayim, you're not as good as the guy who's giving totally l'shem shamayim. All that he can give, he gives $20. So you give $1,000, okay? Maybe you have $1 million and you're begrudgingly giving $1,000. But me, who makes $20 and I give 19 of it to tzedakah, that's much greater. So we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that it's a pleasing offering no matter how big the korban is. As long as you're doing within your means and you're doing what you think is the right thing to do. So it can't be that it's telling us that you need to bring a big toda, you need to bring a big par, or a big sheep, or a big goat, because God doesn't really care how big the animal is, as long as you have the right kavanah. So what does it mean when it says, Shtei todos gedolos? Ela gedola shebetoda, the biggest of the toda. Umaynihu chametz. And what is it chametz? Now it's not clear from this Gemara. When it says Shtei todos, it sounds like you're bringing just 2 loaves of bread. Not 2 whole todos, 40 loaves from each. But clearly, first of all, the Gemara is saying you only bring in the chametz part. That's why it says shtei todos gedol. So what it sounds like is you need to bring 2 loaves of chametz. That means you have 10 and 30 usually. Over here, you're going to bring 1 or 2, basically 2 of the 10 loaves. Well, it's shtei todos. So each toda has 10 chametz and 30. So really, you have 20 and 60. Out of those 20, you're bringing 2. Bringing 2 of the chalos, and that's what it means, todos gedolos. You're bringing 2 loaves, and as we'll see, you'll have 2 kohanim. One kohen will be carrying 1 challah, and the other kohen will be carrying the other challah, and they'll be walking around the city as part of this parade with 2 challahs, 1 from each of a korban toda. But that's why it says gedolos, because it's telling you gedolos, i.e. chametz, versus matzah. Says the Gemara, Dinan. Where do we see that gedolos are chametz? Says the Gemara, Hatoda haisaba min chametz shayin Yerushalayim Yerushalmio shehin sheish midbarios. There were different measurements for a sa in the midbar, which was at the time of the Torah, and in Yerushalayim later on. They changed it. That means let's just use it in the time of the midbarios because that's what it's talking about here. So there was sheish shehin shtei ephos. So 2 ephos equals 6 sa. Ve'efa shaloshim, therefore 1 ephah is 3 sa. Esrim isaron, 1 ephah equals 3 sa. 2 ephahs equals 6 sa, which equals 20 isaron. Asara lechametz ve'asara lematzah. You have to bring 20 isaron, and therefore it's 10 for chametz and 10 for matzah. Uvematzah shlosha minin chalos rikikina rivucha. There were 3 types of matzah. So first of all, let's just back up a second. In terms of the measurements, just parenthetically, what it's saying is that until later on in history, at the time of the midbar, so if you had 2 ephahs, that equaled 6 sa. So if later on 2 ephah equals 5 sa, which sa is bigger? The later sa is bigger because 5 of the later one equals 6 of the early one. That means each sa later on, they changed the sa measurement and they made it bigger so that each sa was 1 1/5. So that 5 of them equaled what was originally 6. But that's parenthetically, that's just. But let's talk about the measurements from the midbar, not to get confused. 2 ephahs equal 6 sa, which equals 20 isaron. And the Torah says that when you bring a korban toda, the flour that you're going to use to bake the challahs and the matzah are going to be 20 isaron worth of flour. That's the measurement of flour. And of that flour, 10 of the isaron is going to be used for the challah, and 10 of the isaron is going to be used for the matzah. So do the math now. If I'm using 10 pounds of flour to bake challah, and I'm using 10 pounds of flour to bake matzah, and out of the 10 pounds of flour, I'm getting 10 challahs and 30 matzahs, so which one is going to be thicker?
Anyways, challah rises.
Anyway, challah rises, but that's because we call challah challah. But we don't know that back then challah is called challah. Yeah. What the Gemara is proving is that if you're taking 10 pounds of flour and making 10 challahs with it, and you're taking 10 pounds of challah and making 30 of something else, what we're going to call matzah, clearly the matzahs are going to be thinner than the matzahs are going to be thinner than the challahs because you're getting 30 of something out of the same measurement of flour. That's what the Gemara is saying. And therefore, when we're talking about toda gedolos, when we're talking about the gadol part of a toda, which again can't be talking about the korban part, the basar part, because ishe reach nichoach, everything's equal to Hashem. It must be that the bigger of the 2 is the challah. And therefore, when we talk about bringing 2 todos gedolos, which again we say 2 todos in our Mishnah, but we see from the Chaim 2 todos gedolos, that means that you're basically carrying 2 challahs as part of this process. Each kohen is carrying 1 challah. Make sense? You look confused, Rabbi. What's the problem?
I just want the todas, but this is part of the toda.
Again, we're taking, it sounds like as part of this process, they're going to shech 2 korban todas. They're going to leave the meat and do whatever they do with it. They're going to leave the 30 matzahs and 9 of the challahs for this toda. They're going to leave the 30 matzahs and 9 of the challahs for this toda. They're going to take 1 challah from this toda, 1 challah from this toda, 1 kohen is going to take this challah, 1 kohen is going to take this challah, and that's going to be part of the parade.
Are you allowed to eat a toda outside the boundaries of Yerushalayim?
We're going to see in just a second. You cannot eat a toda outside Yerushalayim.
So
but they're expanding. No.
Not
Before it's
Yerushalayim.
expanded.
What?
Before it's expanded.
Who said that they're eating the toda? They're not eating this challah right now. They're using it. They're using it. You're not allowed to take it out.
Okay.
We'll see if you're allowed to take it out. Let's see. You're jumping ahead over here.
We're talking about anyway, not outside the base of Mikdash, not outside.
We're talking about expanding Yerushalayim now.
Well, I thought it was
We're using no. This is the Shtei Todos. It sounds like again we're going to see in a second it's different, but right now we're talking about the Azara, and then it says She'em Mosifin Ala Ir V'Ala Azaros. So we'll see in a second that the Gemara right now is talking about expanding Yerushalayim. The way you expand Yerushalayim is with Todas, and the way you expand the Azara is with Korban Minchas, which we'll see. And the Gemara is actually going to jump and talk about exactly what the rabbis talk about right now. But it just says parenthetically at the end of matzah shloshim. And you should know that out of the 30 matzahs that came with the Toda, there were 3 different types of matzah. Again, I can't show you a picture of what they are. But chalos, which is fascinating, of course, you're confused. So you have one of the 10. So you have 10 chalos, 10 rikikin, 10 revuchas within the matzahs, and then you have 10 what we call separate chalas. So you have 10 chalas that are matzah chalas, kosher lepesach chalas, and then you have 10 regular chalas. So of those 10 regular chalas, we took, again, one from this Toda and one from this Toda, and that was part of the process. Zakta Gemara. This is all to expand Yerushalayim. Amar Rami Bar Chama, Ein ha'azara miskadeshes ela b'shiyare mincha. By the azara, they didn't actually use a korban Toda, they used the leftovers from the korban mincha. What was the korban mincha? It was like flour and oil. And again, usually they would bring, what would they bring? The korban, the Kohen would take a handful, what was it called? What was the handful? The kometz, a kamitza. He would take a handful of the flour, put it on the mizbeach, whether before or after it was baked, I think depends on what kind of korban mincha. But then that actual korban mincha, that wafer of oil and flour and other things, that was actually eaten by the kohanim, as we'll see, inside of the azara. But part of the process of expanding the azara was to take a piece, some of that korban mincha, and again, seemingly to have one Kohen hold part of the korban mincha, another Kohen to hold part of the korban mincha, and to march around the outside of the azara. Again, if this is the azara and I'm expanding it, then we're going to march exactly around the perimeter where we want to expand it. And wherever we march, that new space will become Kodesh as part of the courtyard. So it says in Gemara, why are they using a korban mincha by the azara and a korban toda by expanding Yerushalayim? Because my time, a ki Yerushalayim. Fascinating. Ma Yerushalayim davar hanechal ba mekatsha. Just like a toda can only be eaten in Yerushalayim, and therefore we're going to take something that can only be eaten in Yerushalayim to be mekadesh Yerushalayim. Af azara davar hanechal ba mekatsha. So to the azara, we're going to use something that can be eaten in the azara. The Gemara says, I understand, so why can't you use a toda for both? The toda can be eaten, has to be eaten in Yerushalayim, but it could also be eaten in the azara. Says the Gemara, no, what's the comparison? Ela ki Yerushalayim. Ma Yerushalayim davar hanechal ba. It's not just something that we eat there. Davar hanechal b'yotzei mimena nifsal. In order to expand Yerushalayim, you need to use something that's eaten in Yerushalayim, and also once it goes outside of Yerushalayim, you can no longer eat it. What's that? That's a korban toda. You have to eat it in Yerushalayim. You could also eat it in the azara, but if it goes out of the azara, it could still be eaten in Yerushalayim. Once it goes out of Yerushalayim, it can no longer be eaten. Af azara davar nechaba. So to the azara needs to be something that's eaten there, and hayotze mimena nifsal. And we know that if the korban mincha is taken out of the azara, then you can no longer eat it. Again, for those keeping track at home of Daf Yomi, I'll just give you a little thing that I'm doing recently. This is just a personal thing. So I also started learning Daf. I have a separate piece of paper, and I write Yedios Klalios on it, similar to I think what you're doing with words, etc. And every day at the end of the daf, you go ahead and you write 3 or 4 things that you learned today. In the sense that you're not going to remember everything, hopefully you will, but you learn 3 or 4 things. So if you go home today and you write, Korban Mincha, only eaten in the Azara, Pasul outside the Azara, Korban Toda, only eaten in Yerushalayim, Pasul outside Yerushalayim. If on that whole daf, that's what you got, 1 or 2 things per daf, that adds up. If you do 80 blot, you have 160 adios or more that you're going to get from the Masechta. So again, try to understand all the words. Just personally, what I'm starting to do is...
Maybe at the end of the year, give us put the summary.
That's already asking me too much. I barely have enough time to finish. But it is. I could, if you want, one day we'll take and I'll share my Yedios Klalios with you, and we'll go through it one day at the end of the parak, no problem. I just started doing it at the end of parak Aleph. So you do that, and every day you write down 2 or 3, you jot down 2 or 3 different things that you learned today, and this way you're good. Again, not that you know everything, but at least this way, next time we have a Korban Mincha, if you chazah that, you remember what the Korban Mincha is. Otherwise, if you read the article notes, especially, which are geschmack, you just in one ear, out the other, or in one eye, out the other, however you want to say it. But Zakta Gemara, it makes a lot of sense. It's glot. That the Azara, you have the Korban Mincha, if you take it out, so the equivalent of whatever... And it makes sense. You're going to expand that thing with whatever something has to be eaten in that thing. It's going to be possible outside that thing. So a mincha which has to be eaten in the azara, and if it comes out, you can no longer eat it. We're going to use that to expand the azara. And the korban toda, which has to be eaten in Yerushalayim, and if you take it outside Yerushalayim, then it's going to be pasul, will be used to expand Yerushalayim. But it also gets you going, because sometimes it becomes a little bit depressing when you learn Daf Yomi and you feel like you're not remembering anything. So at least here, when you have certain idiots and you keep going, so you feel like geschmack. Zak the Gemara, Imala alan chametz afkan chametz. So now the Gemara gives a very interesting thing. It's saying, well, now we have the Korban Mincha, but we know, as we'll see in a second, that the Korban Mincha Okay, let's not go there. The Korban Mincha, the Gemara is suggesting right now, the Korban Mincha that you go ahead and use here needs to be a Chametz Korban Mincha. Just like the Korban Toda, we said, when you have a choice, you take the Chametz and not the Matzah of the Korban Toda. So too, you should take the Chametz of the Mincha and not the Matzah of the Mincha. The Gemara says, V'tizbra Minchas Chametz Miyaka. There's only one problem, sir. There's no such thing as a Chametz Korban Mincha. Another good idea to write down. There's no such thing as a Korban Chametz Mincha. Why? Because what does it say? What does it say by a Korban Mincha? Lo se'afeh chametz. Doing chumash also helps. Lo se'afeh chametz. V'chitema demach mitzahu l'shirayim u'mekadesh behu v'achsiv lo se'afeh chametz chalkam. So Gemara says, I have a great idea. You know what? Bring the Korban Mincha, do the kometz, bring the Korban Mincha on the Mizbeach, then let it rise and let it become chametz. And then you'll use it after the Korban Mincha is done. Let the shirayim, that's the word shirayim, like from the tish, let the shirayim, the leftover, rise, and then use that to be mekadesh the azara, the new part. Says the Gemara, no, it says lo te'afeh chametz chelkam, even a part of it. Even after you're done with it, you can't let it become chametz. So the Korban Mincha never becomes chametz. So how are you going to carry chametz? How are you going to bring a Korban Mincha that's chametz? The Gemara says there is one Korban Mincha in the world, or in the year, that is chametz. Which one? On Shavuos. V'amar Reish Lakish, afilu chelkam lo te'afeh chametz. Alam alo. You have one Korban Mincha throughout, and therefore if you want to expand the Azar, what do? You wait till Shavuos, you have plans in place, and by Shavuos, you expand the Azara with the two Shtei Alechem, the two offerings that are brought on Shavuos. Mishum Delo Eshel. The Gemara says, good try, but not a good try. Hechi Navid, why? So now the Gemara is going to listen to this. Nivne Me'asmo. Build the expansion to the Azara. Start, putting up the fence on Erev Yantiv. And go ahead and be Mekadesh with this parade on Erev Yantiv. That's not a possibility. Why? Because when does the Shtei Alechem become Kadosh? And it has to be Kadosh in order to be used as part of this process. When does it become Kadosh? Only on Shavuos. Once you bring the two animals. When you shech the two kvasim, or the two kvasim, then and only then do the Shtei Alechem become holy. And you can only use them as part of the process when they're holy. So you can't do this whole process on Erev Yantiv. So the Gemara says, you know what? Nivne me'asmol. So let's do the boundaries on Erev Yantiv. V'nikdash edna. And today, after you bring the keveses, now the Shtei Alechem becomes holy, and let's do the parade on Yantiv. Who else? What else are you doing on Yantiv? Do the parade. Ba'in on Kiddush b'shas binyan. No, you need to actually do the parade at the time that you build the extension. Nivne b'yantiv and nikache b'yantiv. Perfect. So build the extension on Yantiv and then do the parade on Yantiv after Shul. Ein binyan mikdash doche Yantiv. Sorry, you can't build the Beis HaMikdash on Yantiv or on Shabbos. Nishkiva, nishvika lemachar, hachi v'nivnei v'nikache. I have a great idea. So now you can't do it before Yantiv because they're not kadosh yet. So now take the Shtei Alechem, use them for Atzeres. Don't eat them on Atzeres after they're holy. Save them for the next day. And on the day after Yantiv, build the boundaries and do the parade. Sorry, sir, ifselele belina. That the next day you can no longer use them because we know that lina, again another concept to write down, lina is when the korban stays overnight, depending on which korban. They can't be eaten more than one day and one night, 2 days, whatever. So the korban of Shtei Alechem have to be eaten that day and that night. It means on Shavuos and the following night, and as soon as sunrise comes up on the day after Shavuos, you can no longer use them. Once there's lina, they're puzzle, they're usher to be eaten, they clearly can't be used as part of the parade either. So we're running out of options. You have to burn them beforehand or eat them before. So nivne mimala yoma. So the Gemara says, okay, we're running out of options. You know what you should do? Build the extension, most of it on Erev Yantiv. Now we said you can't build the whole extension on Erev Yantiv because you have to be Mekadesh at the day that you build it. But you can't be Mekadesh at the day you build it on Erev Yantiv because the Shtei Alechem is not holy yet. So build 3/4 of the extension or 4/5 of the extension and leave a little bit left. Therefore what? Then, because the problem was that we assumed that you wouldn't have enough time to build the entire extension at night. So we assume if you build 4/5 of it or 9/10 of it, now you only have a tiny bit left. So what could you do? You could finish it on Yantiv after Yantiv is over at night. The korban does not yet become pasul of lina until when? Until the morning. Therefore, you could have the parade at night. Beautiful parades they have at night. Says the Gemara, Nivne mimali yoma v'nishaya beporta da'ad dekadish yoma la'alter nagmre v'nikachi. Right after Havdalah, you'll finish building it and you'll go ahead and do the parade. Ein binyan Beis HaMikdash balayla. You can't build it at night either. You can't build it on Yantiv. You can't build it on Shabbos. Can't build it at night. Says Gemara, Amar, what?
Why would they even think you could do that completion of the building at night?
Why not?
Why not?
I thought you can't build.
Again, this is teaching us that Ein binyan Beis HaMikdash Motei Yantiv. The question was, the suggestion was we said that you want to build the whole thing on Erev Yantiv, you can't do it because you need the Shtei Alechem to be kadosh and they don't become holy until on Shavuos. Right. So he says build build it after Yontiv. You can't build it the day after Yontiv because the Shei Lechem already are pasul because of Lina overnight. So you can't do, the Gemara doesn't even suggest, because it knows that logistically you can't build the whole extension Motzei Yontiv, it's too much work. People are tired after Yontiv, it's too much work. So he says build most of the extension on Erev Yontiv. Until you finish it, it's not considered as if you built it. So build 9/10 of it on Erev Yontiv. 1/10 we could build on Motzei Yontiv. That's not too much work. Finish the 1/10 on Motzei Yontiv, and then do the parade right afterwards. The Korban is not yet pasul because the night hasn't passed yet. Says the Gemara, there's a problem because you can't build at night. Now that you can't build at night, you can't build on Shabbos, you can't build on Yontiv, you can't build at night, and even 1/10 you can't build at night. Now you're stuck, you have nothing else to do. As the Gemara says, Damar Bai, Minayin Shein Binyan Beis HaMikdash Balayla, Shenamar Uviyom, again, today's parsha, Uviyom Akimas HaMishkan, Biyom Akimo, Belayla Ein Makimo, Hilkach Lo Efshar, therefore you can't, and therefore what? Therefore you can't do what? Therefore there's no possible case where you're going to have a Korban Mincha that's going to be Chametz, and therefore we're not being choser on what we said. We agree that you need a Korban Mincha in order to extend the boundaries of the Azara. Just Lamaise, it comes out that the Korban Mincha you're going to be using is going to be Matzah, as opposed to by the Korban Toda, which is extending the boundaries of Yerushalayim. That Korban Toda will be used with, you'll be using the Lechem, which are Chametz. That's the Gemara. Gishmak. Weiter, one more thing for today. Uveshir. Tana Rabbanan. We said that part of this parade, you don't just have a parade, you have a lot of instruments and song as well. So part of this parade, what do? Shir Shel Toda. What's that? Mizmor L'Soda. Part of the parade is that they would say Mizmor L'Soda. After all, it makes sense. They're using the Korban Toda. Bekinoros uvenivalim uvitzaltzalim akol pino pino akol even gedola shebushalayim. And they used different types of harps and cymbals and lyres, not L-I-A-R-S, L-Y-R-E-S, lyres. They used different lyres. Alkol pino pina on every corner. There were people waiting and playing music everywhere. V'alkol even gedola shebushalayim. And on every Even Gedola, they were playing music as they were expanding Yerushalayim. V'omer, and what else would they say? Arumimcha Hashem ki dilisani, v'lo simachta yivayli. Hashem, thank you for being there for me. What else would they say? V'shir shel pigayim. V'yesh omrim shir shel nagayim. It doesn't mean v'yesh omrim a different shir, but they called this shir, besides Arumimcha Hashem ki dilisani, they had another shir that they sang. Some people called it the shir shel pigayim. As Rashi says, pigayim are the people, or the mazikin, that try to harm you. The devils that try to harm you. And some people say the shir shel negayim, the shir of nega. What is that shir? That shir is v'hinoam as Hashem Elokeinu aleinu masayidenu konleinu masayidenu konei. We'll see in a second why it's called those two. That's the brisa. The Gemara interjects for a second and says, Man de'amar dinegayim. The one who says that v'hinoam is called the shir shel negayim of nega, like saras, dichsiv, because what does it say in v'hinoam? V'nega lo yikra bi'alecha. We said we don't want a nega. Seemingly what this is saying is we're expounding the boundaries of Yerushalayim, and there should Hashem be no negas within this expansion that we're about to do. Umandi Amar Pegayim, what's it called Pegayim? Dichtiv Yipol Mitzid Chayelef. We say that all of these mazikin, these harmful angels, should all fall by the side. Comes back the brisa. Ve'omer, he's saying, so what is this shir shel pegayim and shir shel negaim that I just said? Ve'omer Yoshe b'tzei Yisrael yometzel shadai yisonan. Hashem's protecting us as we expand Yerushalayim. Ad until ki ata Hashem machzi el yon samtem unecha. Hashem, you're there for us. Ve'chozer ve'omer. So you say again, Aramimcha Hashem ki dilisani. You say v'hi noam. And part of the process, part of the parade was they sang Mizmor LeDavid Bevarcho B'nei Avshalom Beno Hashem Arabu Tzari Ad Lashem Yishol Amcha B'Chasech Hasela. The third thing that they said was Mizmor LeDavid when he ran away from Avshalom, and Rashi explains, and this is based on the first wide Rashi. This is based on the fact that it says Rabim Omrim Menashi Ein Yeshua Solo Bilhim Sela, that they used to daven, and this is what they said when they went ahead and they built the second Beis HaMikdash. There's a whole discussion. First Beis HaMikdash, but Lamaisa, this is part of the Mizmor as well. So again, when we talk about shir, they used to play a lot of music. They would say Vihi Noam. They would say Mizmor L'Soda. They would say Rabim Hashem Ki Dilisani, and they would say the Mizmor LeDavid Bevarcho Mipnei Avshalom. That was the shir. Vaiter Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Bishua ben Levi, Amar Luhu Lahani Cry Vegani. He would say Vihinoam and then go to sleep. If you open up a siddur, you'll notice that in the siddur today there are people. Vihinoam is part of Kriyat Shema Alamita. So he would say Vihinoam to protect him from Shadim when he went to sleep. How did he do this? You can't use divrei Torah in order to get better. Now, this doesn't mean saying Tehillim, but as we'll see in a second, you can use certain forms of learning Torah in order to make yourself better. Lahagein Shani, he wasn't using it to make himself better. He was using it to protect himself, and that's okay. Ve'ela ki amar aser diika maka. And when we say it's aser diika maka, idika maka aser vesulo, Gemara is saying, I understand. If you have an actual makkah, it's not just aser to use divrei Torah to heal yourself. It's actually worse than aser. It's actually you're gonna lose your chelak olam haba. V'atanan halok eshal hamaka ein lo chelak olam haba. Says Gemara Idmar la Amar Yochanan beroke kshanu. That's when you spit. Lefisha ein maskirun shem shamayim ala rakika. I don't exactly understand how all this stuff works because this is a little bit beyond me. But this is like lamenting, or what's it called? Incantations. Somehow I think it has something to do with avodah zara. So there are basically three levels: to say tehillim and to just learn Torah stam, say shever for shleim or something like that. That seems to be okay. If you start going ahead and you start doing these incantations and all these other things that again they used to do, so then that would be aser. If you go ahead and you do not only this lamenting and incantations, but you also spit on the wound, which was part of some type of avodah zara type thing. If you did that, then not only was it aser, but you actually would lose your chelak in olam haba as well. But I think they're all revolving around some type of voodoo, Hindu, non-Jewish type of avodah zara type worship. That's what it sounds like to me. Okay, Zakta Gemara. Beis Din Mahalchin Ushtei Todos Acharein. Almost done. So Beis Din would walk, and the two Todos would be behind them. It sounds like. Lemeimer de Beis Din Kamei Toda Azli. Does that sound? That sounds like the Beis Din would go in front of again, and then all the Jewish people would be behind. But it sounds like Beis Din would go in front of the two Korban Todas, or in front of the two loaves. We see that actually over there the Korban Toda went in front of the Jewish people. Says the Gemara, you read it a little bit differently, even though it's a little bit of a stretch. Hachi Kamar Beis Din Mahalchin. Ushtei Todos Mahalchos uBeis Din Achareim. Beis Din walked, the two Todas went, but the Beis Din went behind the two Todas. So again, the parade went, you had Beis Din behind the two Todas. Two Todas, the two loaves of bread, which were each carried by a Kohen. So you had two Kohanim carrying two loaves of bread, the Beis Din behind them, and the Jewish people behind them. Keitzad Mahalchos. So now the Gemara wants to know, how did these Kohanim walk? Now somebody told me, and it doesn't say it in the Gemara, somebody quoted the art scroll that says that they used to walk counterclockwise. Right. So they would walk counterclockwise. It's not brought down. I was joking. I said that in like 100 years from now, nobody's going to know the difference between the Ritva, the Rush, the Rambam, and the art scroll. They're going to think that the art scroll is like one of the Rishonim. So somebody quoted from the art scroll.
The reason for that is because they start facing, they turn around, they go outside, and they face the wall. It said go to the right,
which is interesting because it doesn't right. Oh, because it said in the pasuk liyamin hachoma. Right. But again, it doesn't say anywhere in this Gemara that case. So what would happen? So again, this was the city, and they would walk counterclockwise this way. Okay, so they're walking this way, and again they're expanding the boundaries. So what does the Gemara say? How would these two Kohanim walk? What does it mean? How would the two Kohanim walk? Well, there's two options. If you have two Kohanim each carrying a loaf of bread, so they could either walk side by side, or they could walk one in front of the other. Now, what did we say on the top of Yudal Mabeis? We said that of these two loaves, hapnimis necheles, the inner one is eaten, v'hachitzona nisrefes, and the outer one is nisraf. So first of all, if they're walking one in front of the other, which is considered to be the inner one and which is considered to be the outer one? And if they're walking around the city, so which is considered, if they're walking side by side, which is the inner one? The one that's near the wall or the one that's near the expansion that you're doing? Says the Gemara, one said that they're walking next to each other. V'chadamar is we paskin zu achar zu. They walk one in front of the other. Mandi amar zu kineged zu hapnimis hachtem mekarva lechoma. The one who said that they walk next to each other, these two guys walking around like this, counterclockwise. So which one is the pnimis? The pnimis is the guy on the inside, closer to the wall. And the chitzonis is the guy on the outside. That makes sense when you're doing a race. This is the inner lane and that's the outer lane. Says the Gemara, Mandi amar zu achar zu. When you have two guys and they were walking one in back of the other, which one was the pnimis? Hapnimis hachtem mekarva lebeis. And the pnimis was actually the back guy, because the back guy was closer to Beis Din and to the Jewish people. That's considered to be the pnimis. Says the Gemara, Tanan, we said hapnimis necheles v'achitzona nisrefes. So according to this, which one did you eat? You ate the one of the guy who was closer to the wall and you burnt the outer one, or you ate the guys who was behind and you burnt the one that was in front. Bishlama lamandi amar zuach arzu amatu lachi pnimis necheles mishum da'asya chitzona kama v'kat shalah. Fascinating. The Gemara says, I understand if they walked one behind the other. So why did you go ahead and burn the front one? Because what happens? The front one, as he walks, what's he doing? He's basically establishing the Kedusha. So that loaf of bread is being used to establish the new Kedusha. That's going to be Kadosh. That's got to be burnt. When the back guy comes right behind him, he's basically walking into now Kadosh territory. Therefore, that stuff can be eaten. That I understand when it's one over the other. But if you have two guys walking side by side, so why are we going ahead and eating the inner one and burning the outer one? Says the Gemara, as they're walking, they're both entering the new territory at the same time. Yes, one guy is closer to the Choma and one guy is further away, but they're both entering and consecrating the new space as they walk. So why should one be eaten and one should be burnt? Says the Gemara, Ulitamecha, according to you, the best way to answer a question in Yiddishkeit is what? Ask another question. And according to you, I have no answer, you're right. But according to you, when it's one behind the other, you were assuming that, well, that makes sense, that the guy behind is going into already Kadosh territory, therefore we would eat this one and burn this one. According to you, it also doesn't make sense. Are you really thinking that when the first guy walks in, he's being Mekadesh a territory? No, you clearly need two Todas. And even though one's going in front of the other, it's not until the second guy comes schlepping along that area actually becomes Kadosh. It's not that the first guy goes and now it becomes Kadosh and he goes into Kadosh territory. It's that he starts the process, and the back guy finishes the process. Says the Gemara, we said if you don't do this exact thing, it's not going to be Mekadesh. Even if you want to say you don't have to do all of them. Even if you want to argue, you don't need the Navi, and this, and that, and the Shir, and the Toda. But if you say you just need the Toda, even just the Toda doesn't mean one of the Todas, it means both of the Todas. And when I go in and I walk, you don't tell me that the first guy is being Mekadesh to space and now the second guy is walking into Kadosh space so you could eat that guy's stuff. At the end of the day, you need both of them, and it's not until the second guy comes that it's actually Mekadesh. So it's not just a Shiloh when the two guys are walking side by side, it's a Shiloh when they're walking one behind the other as well. Says the Gemara, Hani Tava Yechadam Mitzvi Elam, Rabbi Yochanan, you're right. Al Pinavi Nechelas Val Pinavi Nisrefes, you're right. It makes no sense. Not that it makes no sense, chas v'shalom, but you're right, there is no logical reason. There's no logical reason whether you hold the way that we paskin, that the two Kohanim go one in front of the other, or whether you hold that they walk side by side. There's no logical reason, there's no svara that the Gemara can think of why you should dafka be able to eat the inside one, the one closer to the wall or the one behind, as opposed to the outside one, the one further from the wall or the one in front. There's no reason. Why do we do it? Why is the halacha based on the way it's halacha? Seemingly, again, because halacha, it's not halacha l'Moshe Misinai, sort of like a little bit later on, it's al pi navi necheles chagei zechari malachi hayusham ve'al piyam beruach hakodesh asu. Hashem said beruach hakodesh that this is the way that you do the parade, but in Echanami in Svar it doesn't make sense. But beruach hakodesh, we know that when you do this, and again we paskin that it would be like this. It seems like from the Rambam, even though again one would argue that this one should be eaten. And this one, you would argue that in Svara, either one of them could be eaten. So as the Gemara, Ruach HaKodesh, we know that this one, the back one, closer to the Jewish people, the Pnimis, is eaten, and the Chitzoni, the one in front, is actually going to be burnt.